It is a beautiful sunny afternoon here in New Hampshire, and it is tax day. And if you have something running on the other screen, David, you should probably mute that. Tax day. Beautiful. And if you have something running on the other, or is that me? David?
Oh no. Okay.
Here I am talking away on mute.
There we are.
Oh, hey, welcome. It's, shenanigans. Hey, everybody. Happy, I don't even know what day and time it is at this point. I just know that I'm going to talk away here on mute and, figure shit out along the way. Yeah. We were having a lot of bit of technical difficulty. Does anybody know an MSP? I mean, damn it. Like, you'd think I would know a thing or two about running these after I've done enough of them. Welcome. All right, so we're glad you're all here. I'll give David an opportunity to come up on stage and say hello. And David, introduce yourself, who, what, where, when, how, why. Now that we've gotten all these technical details and all this broken crap fixed, David, how are you?
Yeah, we hope so. Hello, everyone. Great to see you. Yeah, I'm David Bopes, one of the senior executives here at Channel Program. And I've been in this area of SaaS, compliance. I've owned MSPs. I've been a senior leader at some very large SaaS companies for the last 15, 20 years. So very pleased to be with you today. We talked with Tim, and let's rock and roll. Can you hear me okay?
Something like that, something like this.
There we go. You just came back, Tim.
Yeah, that's because this is my first rodeo. All right, everybody. I apologize for all the technical difficulties that we've been having along the way. Apparently, I have no idea how to run a computer today. It's probably because it's tax day. And I'm really concerned about paying taxes because it's April 15th here in the States. And and so if it wasn't for technical difficulties, it wouldn't be technology. Anyways, so today is actually kind of fitting since it is tax day here in the States. And we are actually talking a little bit about compliance and budgeting and profitability, things that deal with money. So it's kind of a real fitting conversation that we're actually doing this on tax day. And yes, I did have to say, we are having tech issues. But for the moment, I'm going to come and say, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard, where we help your MSP have risk conversation with your customer using our compliance scorecard. Yay, I got that stuff out of the way. We're really excited to be joined here with our good friend David from the Channel Program. So David, talk to me a little bit about how this conversation came about.
Sure. We're very fortunate we work with you, but more importantly, we released a product, called Better Tracker, and everybody's seen it all over LinkedIn. And it's an expense management subscription tool. What's been exciting about it, and what we're finding from it, Tim, is that the people that have been using it, just was with someone this morning, as a matter of fact, who said the same thing. They were able to see within their customer base, based on what they were spending on different things, gaps in their compliance, things they should be using. So that was extremely exciting for us because right now we have people using it for, again, contract management. And then they're using it with our new addition to our fintech integration. They can see all their own expenses to make sure that they're doing everything they can to keep their business as profitable as possible. But also they can work with their customers and see what's going on with their customers, show them that their IT spend is being done properly, and they can actually increase business that way, as well as talking to new clients. So we're pretty excited by that.
So let's break this down a little bit, right? So I'm an MSP,
Sure.
and I have to buy stuff, and I buy stuff all over the place because I don't necessarily buy it all in one place. And I love my new shiny tools, and I probably have no idea what contract I'm on, what I'm paying per month, where those things reside. I just know, like, I pay for a gym membership and I never go to it.
Yep.
Right. And so, when we think about not just compliance and IT budget and the risk associated with that, I know my MSP when I was there, fortunately, we had a huge accounting department that kept me on my toes, and I didn't necessarily have to deal with that stuff on the day-to-day basis. But not every MSP is that fortunate. And so what I'm hearing, and I want to back up, I know that you have rebranded and all of that, but this concept of understanding my IT spend, right? That's what it was called. Now it's this new
better tracker.
Better tracker, right?
Right.
Feels a little bit like, being able to better tracker what I'm spending my money on, and when what those contracts are. But how that relates to business risk, I think, is a really good conversation for us to dive into. Right? So, how is this done beforehand?
Well, myself did it too when I owned 2 MSPs on the East Coast. We were doing our spreadsheets. They were using spreadsheets and I myself got auto renewed on a very large contract that I had already displaced someone. I had a large MSP. So I know how incredibly painful this can be. So it's not just the people that keep missing renewals of items they want to keep. It's also things that maybe you don't want to spend. So it's amazing, but everybody's been pretty much using spreadsheets. So they stick it maybe in, they have some of it maybe in their one of their Outlook calendars or something. It's amazing what we've seen that, but they really don't have control over it, and it becomes a real in the best way about it. The real incredible part about this whole thing is that it's really scary. Is that profitability is everything right now with an MSP, especially with the economy, what's going on, right? It's up and down. It's all over the place. And this is your time. My MSP was 45% profitable, what we did year over year. But we're seeing the average is around 12 to 15%. And this is a way they can help them fix that bottom line and increase revenue.
So you're right. So we had a full-blown accounting department, and while I did have my own credit card to purchase things and go through our own purchasing, and procurement process, and our accounting department was on top of all of that stuff. But you're right. Like, I kept my own internal thing. Like, what did I buy? When did I buy it? How much was it? And what does it do? And doing that in a spreadsheet, right? Of course, actually, being the programmer, that I am, I did have a database and I did have a web front end that I could keep track of and do some calculations and keep track of, because I just hate spreadsheets. It's kind of why Compliance Scorecard exists, because I'm not a spreadsheet guy. I think rows and columns goes in a database. Period. That's just how I work. So we actually started this kind of tracking all of this stuff with a Microsoft Access database, which was fine because it was just me and I just needed to know. But as we grew and added more people, Access has limitations. You can't have multiple people on the same record on the same list. So we migrated that to a web portal to be able to keep track of budgeting and estimating and all that fun stuff. So we were a little bit different than the vast majority of the MSPs, but a lot that I talked to, they're probably not even tracking it. Right? I think that's one of the challenges, and that in and of itself is a business risk. You're shelling out money shelling out money. You don't necessarily know where. Maybe you do, but all right. Can I be a little personal and a little anecdotal here?
Sure.
So this is why Maureen is our operating officer and our CFO. And it has nothing to do with the business. She takes care of that and runs that really well. I, on the other hand, we are completely different people when it comes to budgeting and finance and accounting and money and numbers and all the things, right?
Yep.
She couldn't tell you what's on, line 52 of, file.php, but I have no idea what's in the checkbook. We learned this early on in our marriage, which was we are vastly different people when it comes to certain parts of just life in general. And what we learned was anything around numbers and finance and that kind of stuff, Tim doesn't want in his brain. Now I can tell you what's on what lines of code, what's here, what's there. And Maureen is really great with numbers. That's why she's the COO and the CFO and deals with all of that and budgeting and all that stuff. And so a vast majority of my life, I've never had to balance a checkbook.
Sounds so familiar. Sounds familiar.
But I mean, we're both really good at our own individual strengths. Never had to balance a checkbook. And so this past Christmas, I have grandbabies now. And so I have my own little budget, my own little credit card, my own little bank account that I can do whatever the hell I want with. And I don't think I've ever balanced the checkbook or looked at a credit card statement or done a thing and whatever. I mean, because it's just not who I am. And I know this sounds really bad. We have somebody managing that for us.
Thank God.
but so I'm like, I need to go Christmas shopping. I do it all online. I buy things here. I'm like, ooh, I want this for my grandbaby and that for my grandbaby and this for my, and before I knew it, I was like, I mean, it's just plastic. I can keep swiping the card. Wow. Until Maureen was like, by the way, you need to stop buying stuff because you overdrew your credit card by $300. I was like, that's because I did. So, but here's the thing for an MSP. If you are not on top of this and not tracking this and not having a Maureen to manage this for you, a better tracker managing this with you and alongside you, yeah, you could overdraft, just like Tim did for Christmas this year. Hey, but at least the grandbaby's got cool toys.
Yeah, exactly. And Tim, that's a really good point. I thank you for bringing that up because that's what we're seeing. I mean, literally, we show them within the platform. So everyone that signed up for a demo, they're going to get to see it live. But what's exciting about this is that they go in and can see, one, when the renewal's due, but two, they actually have a reminder piece that they can put in there. This is all automated in the platform where it comes up long in advance so they don't end up renewing something they don't want, or again, not missing that key renewal. And then on top of that, what they're spending on it. And what's really cool, what we added, while we changed the name to Better Tracker, just like you said, is we added the fintech piece. One of the things that happens, this will be really helpful with you with your Christmas shopping, is that it will tell you whether you've gone up or down in your spending based on what you've been normally doing with those particular items. So, for example, if you're an MSP and you've got your Microsoft bill comes in and you've been spending X amount, all of a sudden it's going to give you an alert if it went up. And it'll give you alerts every day on anything. And then you can also be a hero with your customers of showing them the same thing, that they truly then have the power to harness and make sure they're not overspending and that they're making sure they're not wasting their money. It creates tremendous efficiency.
So there's a way for me to keep track of and maybe set budgets or limits on things so that I don't overdraft in the future.
Exactly. Yep. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just saying, I dropped the Bitly link in there. I'll put that in the LinkedIn chat for you all as well, so you have it. I know they're Bitly things; they're a little awkward, but I'll drop that in the link so that if people wanted to get a demo, they could get a demo.
Yeah.
Get a demo here, and I'll be for people so that they have it when they come back to the stream and the feed. But So keeping track of stuff,
Yep.
a centralized location,
Mhm.
the ability to set budgets or limits.
Yep.
Um, so that's great for me as an MSP. Where does that extend to our customer?
Absolutely. So as we were talking about earlier, one of the key things that's going on with MSPs today is that everybody sounds the same. If they're going into a new prospect or going into their customer, they're having the same conversations. This conversation now differentiates them from all our other MSPs, where they're able to talk about, like I said, efficiencies, operations, working and managing the different areas of their spend, managing their portfolios, et cetera, et cetera. And so when they're doing that within their customer base, as you just said, what's really awesome about this is that they may even find some areas where they weren't providing that service, and they're going to be able to provide it for them. And also where they can show them areas they need, for example, for compliance, they're missing something, and they have to have that particular software in there or a tool, et cetera. And then they're increasing revenue, and they're increasing it at a very reasonable clip when it comes to profitability. So that's where the customer piece comes in. And again, the differentiating part, way back when I owned my MSP and we got very large, we had the dark web way back when, right? That was the new thing, could kill it with it, right? This is the next thing. What they're telling them, we had several people sign up today alone that said, this differentiates me with my customers and my prospects, the opportunity. So they're going back to talk to them, gives them a new area to discuss.
So it can help MSPs uncover opportunity in their customer base.
Yep, exactly. Sure can. And on top of that, again, they're going to look like the true advisor. I used to call myself we were a technology firm. We weren't, we were technology, but we were a true strategic advisor for them. And once you do that, they look at you differently, and they really truly look at you as a partner versus just a customer and a provider.
So when I think through, does it also suggest to the MSP you should buy Compliance Scorecard? Oh, sorry, shameless plug.
Good plug.
Does it suggest to the MSP this is what good looks like?
It doesn't say it the way you're thinking, but there is a way within our what's called Navistack where you can see what people have been using, what's the right stack that you should be using. Meaning because we have that, we do have all that data in another part of Channel Program on our site that they can look through and see it. So that's how it first started. When Kevin and Matt, our co-founders, they started by acquiring data and seeing how MSPs, what they're using their stack, how they're using it, what the costs are. And that morphed into, like you said, my IT spend, because MSP said, guys, we need this happening. And they said, okay, let's see if we can make it do that. And then it keeps evolving. Where do you see all the different, we just keep adding things that make it better and better for the MSP, for them to, again, create efficiencies, streamline their business, and increase revenue.
Yeah. So how does this tie back to compliance, right? Because obviously that's that's kind of my forte. Let's talk about the first component, which is IT budgeting. I think we kind of nailed that a little bit. Now I know what I'm spending my money on. Now I can have some predictability around that. I can start to understand some of my profitability. So let's talk about the profitability component, right? Okay. So I'm keeping track of my spend, right? I have Better Tracker to help with that. Does Better Tracker, I don't know, I'll pick on, well, I'll actually use one of my specific MSP examples, right?
Sure.
You go to Proofpoint, their MSRP is $7 per seat per month. I buy it from another platform. I get it for $4. I sell it for $7. So I'm basically making $3 a seat. I'm just using this as an example. That's probably 5 years old example now, but this was back when I was running there. $7, I was billed $4, I was making $3 per seat profit. Does it have that kind of capacity to understand I'm marking my tool up and I'm getting profitability from the tools or not?
Yes, there's actually, again, when they go to the demo, it's going to be really exciting. If you'll be able to see up there exactly how much time is being spent, but how much is being, you can see exactly what's going in and out. And if you made that change, you'll see the difference of where you save that money and that efficiency. So it's actually right inside the platform, right on actually the first page, and it's updating constantly.
All right, maybe I asked the question wrong or you answered it differently.
Oh, you're saying, okay, are you saying that is it automatically going to update knowing the difference in the profitability of that?
No, I'm really trying to dive into how to understand, because when I hear profitability as an MSP, my brain goes to two components.
Okay.
The first is, am I marking my tools up to making sure that the tools themselves are profitable?
Mm-hmm.
And the second is, do I actually know my true cost of ownership, my full-time, my fully burdened rate, my overhead, my COGS? And those are way different conversations and deeper conversations.
Correct.
That are probably outside the scope of this today. But if we're talking about profitability as part of this, is it in the first bucket of, hey, my tool costs me X and I charge Y and I know I'm profitable or not?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Not the labor, not the info burden, not the COGS, not the whatever. It's literally, I know from another cloud-based platform, I resell Microsoft licenses, I get 20% margin. Done. I know that. I am 20% profitable as long as I sell them at MSRP, which is that 20% margin. And I know that when I sell a Microsoft license for $5 and I'm billed $3, I'm profitable.
Right in here, yeah, because what's in here is going to show all the costs. So then when you put the contracts in, you're seeing what you're charging. You'll know that difference, and it'll be in the report. So yes, to answer your question.
Well, the inverse of that, I'll also be able to, know that if I'm not profitable. Hey, Microsoft costs you $5 a month, and you're charging $1. That's a problem. Or
yeah, absolutely.
You're not at least covering your costs, because I have seen that happen. In fact, I've done that as an MSP, depending on the product and the stack and the offering. Like, we have taken a hit on a couple of things because we knew the overall package we were offering was more profitable. I'll pick on, I don't know, SentinelOne. That's probably a bad example because that's pennies on the dollar. I don't know, whatever tool, tool XYZ had to be in our stack. It was non-negotiable. We wanted to do this. It doesn't matter. Tool had to be in our stack. Security awareness training. It's $2 per user per month, but we were not going to opt out of that for our customers. When we built the pricing plan, tool X was making 20% and tool Y was losing 10%. Just round numbers. But we did not want to remove that from the stock. So will it keep track of, like, hey, the tool costs you $5, but you're only charging $2? That's a problem.
You can see that you can see that when you have to kind of create a little bit of a report in there, and that's in the next stage what we're releasing. But you can, if you at least look at your expenses and you see what you're charging on the contract side, yes, you'll see that could be very well make a mistake, depending what your seat price is, or if you're doing it based on employee, or however you're deciding to do that.
Awesome. So there is a way to make sure that we are profitable, or at least the aggregate of that.
Yes.
On tool costs me X, I sell it for Y. We're not losing money. I'm not paying for the gym membership that I don't show up for anyways, and stuff donuts in my mouth. That's good.
Yeah, we've actually found that in our own company, Tim. Just so you know, when we put the fintech piece in, we found things that we canceled over a year ago. We were still paying for.
Yeah. So I wonder. All right, maybe this is a little proprietary back end stuff, but I get these things all the time. Like, add this app to your phone and we
Yeah.
will monitor all your multiple payments to Hulu and Netflix and YouTube and this thing and that thing and this thing. And by the way, this was part of that discovery process, right?
Right.
I told you I overcharged my credit card for Christmas because I wanted grandbabies. And then I audited everything. And I actually found out I was paying for Disney Plus 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
I bet you did.
I was paying for it.
Me too.
Part of my Comcast package, which meant I didn't actually need to pay for it. And then I was paying for it as part of my Apple subscription. And then I just had a one-off subscription as well. And if I didn't take the time to do an audit and realize, Disney Plus is not cheap, by the way. And I was paying for it 3 times in 3 different locations, none of which talk to each other. But that sounds like a little bit of that might be happening. Like you might have something like that.
Yeah, that's actually in there. You actually see when you're seeing the expenses, when you see it all gets categorized automatically from our fintech piece, which is from Plaid. Okay, they're the same one that Rocket Money uses, same one that all your banks and credit cards use. That's the middleman. So it has all in that case, it has all the compliance, security, et cetera, that it needs. But you're going to see that in there, and you're going to go, oh, why do I have 4 different ones of this particular one? We only use it once. It's going to be right in there for you to see, and showing that more than likely that you had an increase in your expenditure in that area because you didn't realize that you had too many of them. So yes, it absolutely will do that. So it's funny you say what you said. We all went through it. If you did it in your homes, you found out that your kids, even though they're grown, you have extra licenses of all these different apps.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that feels really helpful.
Yeah.
How does this tie into the compliance piece? Maybe we can talk about the next 5 or 10 minutes about, at least from your perspective, into the compliance piece.
Well, what I think it does, at least we think it does, is that once you understand what they're spending as well as what they're using, if they're from not only yourself, but if there's some other things in there that they've been doing on their own, and you understand whether it's HIPAA, whether it's there's so many different ones out there, FINRA, whatever they are that they have to worry about compliance with PCIA, whatever. You can actually look in there and say, okay, we know from based on what we're seeing that they have the following things to meet those different areas. And I'm guessing your scorecard is going to become pretty huge in that because they'll be able to put in the scorecard and see, does it match everything it's supposed to like we think it does? Or am I missing something that you go, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. I can't believe I don't have that, especially with all the changes that have happened over the last few years. The feds have put out, especially in 2022, a bunch of new compliance pieces within different areas of verticals. So yes, it will help, I think, tremendously in that, and understand, how the SOC's supposed to be, implemented, your ISOs, all the different things that are out there that are critical to make sure that you're in compliance where you should be. And we hear that all the time, that's the MSP's biggest nightmare. We want to make sure that our clients are compliant, not just secure. They got to be both.
Yeah. And, I don't want to turn this into a full-blown compliance conversation, but you are correct. There are, standards, laws, rules, regulations, and things that, businesses need to adhere to. There are tools that can help with that. I always lean into you can never tool your way through compliance. And while it can help,
that's right.
Right? Tool's not going to solve your compliance challenges, but it can certainly help, streamline, lead to profitability, and lead to defensibility, right? So, a lot of states now are looking at like safe harbor rules. And so, even if we distill it down to the least common denominator of, having policies and procedures that are fully governed, approved, authorized, all the things that we tend to talk about, having things like security awareness training, right? There's 1 million tools for those these days, which, by the way, Compliance Scorecard now integrates with 5 and more on the way. Security awareness training, right? Backup, right? Multi-factor authentication. There's probably a handful of 7 or 8 things that we as MSPs should be doing to, best protect, defend, and secure our customers, right? And it turns out that, some of them are tools backed up with the policies and the procedures and the defensibility and the governed component of those tools, right? I mean, I literally just posted about this morning on around security awareness training. SAT programs, which we integrate with, the good friends of mine. In fact, there are two that are literally based here in New Hampshire. One's 45 minutes that way, one's 30 minutes that way. Like, there are two security awareness training platforms for MSPs here in New Hampshire. And they do a really great job at delivering security awareness training. Most of these tools have a policy component that are, again, I'm gonna bash my friends a little bit, that are not awesome. They're good, but they're not a full-blown policy program, right? You just don't rip off a one and done. Here's a document, have a nice day, I checked a box, moved on.
Yep.
It's about building, a process and a program, right? I could say the same thing about vulnerability scanning, which, by the way, I have good friends in the space. We have good friends in the space. I have a sister company in the vulnerability space. Like, just throwing a tool at a requirement or a thing doesn't mean you have a full-blown program, right?
Correct.
Security awareness training and a policy program, whether it's vulnerability management, great. How are you addressing the criticals, the highs, the medium, the lows? What time frame are you addressing those things? Are you actually addressing those things in the KPIs that you've defined? And the list goes on and on and on and on. We could pick multiple different categories of stuff that MSPs can buy, but having a comprehensive program is what's important when it comes to thinking about things like compliance. Tool isn't going to solve it, and despite all the marketing fluff and all the automation and AI words and things that are happening across the space, a tool can only get you so far.
Exactly. And in Better Tracker, the other thing it's going to do, and you brought some really good points there, Tim. I hope everybody was really paying attention that's watching live, because you got to document it. You got to audit. You have to make sure that you have all the different opportunities to think of everything that someone could ask you what's missing or what you didn't do. So you are so right. It just can't be put the solution in place. There's so many other components to it, if you did all the right things. And the biggest thing is documentation, as far as I'm concerned. You keep auditing yourself, and Better Tracker will help you do that, because then you're going to see that you've got them in there, that you have been paying for them, that you have a list of them. You can show that you're doing that on top of the other documentation that you're providing. So that if an audit does come, for a NISC or for, the New York, the New York piece that they have up there with those particular compliance issues for anybody that's in the finance world, for example, you have it all detailed, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, documentation is king. I learned that in 2006 when we were, first government contract, FedRAMP requirement, blah, blah, blah. And I literally had to sit there and be like, oh my God, this is huge. None of it's written down. And by the way, back in 2006, 2007, you couldn't Google any of this crap. You couldn't go to myfakepolicycreator.com and download a thing. And, for the highly dyslexic guy that hates reading and writing, spending 6 to 8 to 9 months of my life writing fortunately, I worked with an educational organization that could help with some of I would write it all down. And then obviously I had really smart PhD people helping with some of the wordsmithing, but it was tough. But if it's not written down, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And the other thing that now it happens, you talked about our efficiency, we talked about the money, but now budgeting. And it also shows the MSPs able to sit there with a customer or a prospect to say, okay, you're missing something for compliance, whatever, but you can now put together a budget that fits what they're going to need to do, so they understand it. And again, that makes you a hero, because I had to have conversations, with, again, New York DFC, I did a lot of that because I was in Maryland and we had customers from New York down to Carolina. And I had to sit there and say to them, listen, you're going to have to spend this money because if you don't, I can't guarantee you to be compliant. Okay. On top of the other things you're doing, we can look at other areas that make sense for you not to spend, but if it makes sense for, again, security, it makes sense for compliance, makes sense for those things. This is where you have to spend it. And that's where you become more of the consultant, again, the more the advisor. And that is so important when it comes down to because everybody thinks of security, you know, they think of backup, they think all those things, but compliance becomes one of those critical tools as well. Because if you don't, you end up in a place where, I give you a great example. I had a client that it was in his house working from his home, and he didn't understand. I kept telling him, you have to be the same compliance as you would if you were in the office because of what you do. You're in the FINRA world. He's DB, you know, you're not gonna have that problem. We're not gonna have that problem. I said, okay, sign this release. Sure enough, he got nailed, and he got $100,000 fine. One man shop and he was doing investments for people.
Yeah, I mean, physical locality doesn't really matter. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But, you know, we had a good question here from the audience. Let me pull this up here.
Great.
Let's just give us a second to read through this, right? Used to work with, you know, supported CPAs, monthly billing, compliance report, you know, asked about Better Tracker. Does it support Citrix? Wow. My mouth is not working. Does it support workloads where customers have dedicated instances, shared pool, setups, QuickBooks Pro, online? I'll give you a second to read through that.
Yeah. Okay. So for QuickBooks, just so you know, for the cloud base, we have an API for that. We actually held it because we found a compliance problem with them. So now, yeah, how about that? So one of our so we found that. And so we decided we better we better pause that. They said by the end of May they'll have that fixed. So, but right now, because of the fintech piece that we offer, all the information that you would have within those two areas you just asked about, it's all going to get pulled in anyway, and it pulls in the last 2 years of data. So it's going to be in there anyway, and it's going to be in there organized in a way that's not necessarily that way in QuickBooks. The Citrix-based workloads, I had to check on that one a little bit. But I believe it would, okay, depending on how you've already notated it in where you're working from. So, so I'm happy to make sure to get back on that one and make sure we give them the proper answer because I believe it does, but I want to make sure I'm correct, depending on how detailed he wants me to be in that.
Yeah, piece. I mean, I don't want you to disclose their compliance issue, but you do bring up an interesting component around your own compliance program.
Yeah,
You're pulling in data. You're processing data. Because now I'm hearing you might be processing financial data, right? Possibly. Yep. I don't know enough, and again, I'm probably putting you on the spot here, and it's probably a bad form of myself. But like, where are you in your own compliance journey? Because there just happens to be a company that works with vendors to get them SOC 2, ISO, CMMC compliant. Just saying.
Yeah. No, we have we have many, the NIST and the ISO and SOC 2, and obviously we have to worry about all those things not only for ourselves because we obviously have data, but also who we picked with the partner for fintech. Okay, so we had to make sure they had everything, and again, Plaid's one of the biggest in North America, to my knowledge. So we went with someone that already had everything in there that would meet the core requirements we did. So that's a great question. We think about for our own solutions as well as others we deal with. They have to have the compliance pieces in place the way we want it, or we won't do business with them. We can't take that responsibility or that
so you drink that champagne.
Correct.
Drink your own champagne, eat your own birthday cake. Whatever those super silly acronyms are.
Yep. Exactly.
So let's kind of bring this full circle.
Sure.
Now I have a tool to manage my tool and a better tracker to making sure that I'm up to date on where my spend is and what I'm doing. That tool can certainly start to help reduce some risk, understand some profitability, maybe slide a little into a component or two of some compliance. right? Is there anything else that we might have been missing around this conversation because I'd like to try to start to get into, whenever we do these, probably the last 5 or 10 minutes,
Sure.
talk about one key takeaway. So,
Sure.
is there any other key points that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure you get across?
Yeah. Here's the number one key point, I guess, the way I look at it. And I touched on this earlier, but with everything going on in the economy, okay, and everybody talking about efficiency and talking about watching their spend and making sure they're doing the right things for their business, et cetera. There's never been a bigger time. We are the perfect time, because it doesn't matter whether something's booming or not booming. Everybody needs to use what we have. So what Kevin and Matt created was something that every business, every MSP, everybody's got to make sure that they're using in some fashion. And if they don't have a CFO and don't have someone, like you have, or is going to take care of everything, not miss anything, et cetera, this gives them the opportunity with tremendous automation and simplicity to be able to do that at a very, very low cost. It's like less than $6,000 a year. If they're turning around and spending with an outside accountant, outside controller, whoever they're doing, they're spending, based on what we're getting back on feedback, 70, 80,000 a year. So I just saved that customer, 30, 40,000 if they're doing it with somebody on the outside, because they're still going to do some stuff for them on the outside, obviously. So they're not going to do the whole thing. And the second thing is, if it was you and I, Tim, and we were doing our own books for MSP when we owned them, and that's our time away. What's that worth? What's that cost there? That's right. To me, time's everything, because you can't get time back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So,
yeah, time is the single most important commodity that you can never make more of.
Yep.
Right. Not a commodity. We had another good question here pop up and
sure.
Here. Pull this up real quick. It's important. A lot's changed. Improving their security maturity position. I know it says LinkedIn user. I don't know, stupid StreamYard, whatever. But
it's okay.
Michael, thanks so much for that. So when I think about how can it help improve security maturity position, and I both hate and love that word, security maturity. How can it help the business mature?
Okay, well, again, you're going to have insight into all the key areas that you're going to know within every section of not just IT, but they're going to see they're going to see the internet, they're going to see the phone business, they're going to see a lot of different things. In the security end, they're going to be able to see everything. And again, if they're missing something, or like you said, maybe they got something from somewhere, like someone else in the company bought something, and the IT guy didn't know it. The IT person didn't know that. Right?
Oh, you mean shadow IT? That never happens.
Shadow IT, yeah, that's the big word. And we look at sprawl, IT sprawl, Kevin likes to say, which is, I think, because people don't realize the average company out there that the MSPs are servicing, they're dealing with 80, sometimes 80, 90 companies. You'd be surprised how many they are when you look at everything they're doing. And they need someone that can help manage that and understand it and be the gatekeeper and someone they trust. And that's supposed to be us, because we're helping their business run efficiently and operationally every day. And we're the forgotten people, because if it's running beautifully, they don't think anything of it. What are we spending money on? What are we spending money on, right?
It's the biggest thankless job in the world. For those people that have issues with affirmation, don't get into IT.
Exactly.
Because nobody ever comes into the office and it's like, oh my God, I got email today and there was less spam. Thank you. That never happens.
Exactly.
But,
exactly.
Back to the improving security, right?
Yep.
So and that word maturity, right? Being able to grow over time.
Right.
When I think of like the spend, I think of the risk around those spend, and I think of the compliance related components around that spend. You mentioned shadow IT, you mentioned sprawl. Is the budget the thing?
Yeah.
Is that considered an asset? No, I don't even want to go down this whole.
No. You do, because you're seeing.
My very good friend Matt and I talk a lot about what's an asset, but is a budget considered your asset?
It absolutely is. And again, so many people. Look, the one that I got renewed on was $50,000 a year. I had to then negotiate to get out of that. Okay, and cost me $7,500. And it didn't matter that we were a large MSP. Didn't matter. It had no bearing on it. It still was.
Right.
It was my mistake because I missed it. So what we looked at is what also this is going to do is you're going to be able to see inside of everything, not only your spend, but based on what you're also earning. You're going to see and make sure that you are able to pay attention to your budget, pay attention to what you've been doing, because most people don't. Somebody signed up last Thursday at one of our events. They said, yeah, I know I'm profitable because I pay myself X amount of money and I pay my employees, but I don't really know how unprofitable I am. And sometimes I forget that we think we've offered something like in security, like this, like Michael asked for, but we didn't realize we forgot to add XYZ to it. You could be adding, SaaS alerts, for example. I saw SaaS alerts at one of the events 2 weeks ago, and saw Jim speak and talked about it. And people said, "Oh my gosh, I forgot that's something we should be adding." And the customer then, so now they're getting more revenue, but again, they're solidifying and maturing, as Michael was asking, maturing the way that customer is becoming more and more sticky to them, as well as getting the proper security, getting the proper compliance, getting the proper tools they need to be efficient and operationally the way they should be.
So as we wind down here in the last 5 or 10 minutes, I like to make sure that we have 1 or 2 key takeaways for our MSPs and our listening audience, right? So, David, I'm going to bring you up here full screen. I'm going to give you an opportunity for you to kind of chat a little bit about what's one sort of key thing that people should be thinking about and taking away here.
Okay. In my opinion, the number one thing is increasing your profitability and your revenue. That's what Better Tracker. It's one of the key items that's going to help you do that. And in doing that, it's going to make you different. Like I said earlier, it's going to make you more of a true advisor and a person they're always going to trust, because you're being honest with them and showing them exactly based on really data, the proper data of you being able to be in the driver's seat with them and have the authoritative and the honesty to show them exactly what they need to be doing. Going into a prospect, I can't tell you how incredibly powerful it is. The last thing I'm going to say on that is, if you're a chamber of commerce member, go into your local chamber. We have seen this. This was Matt's idea. We have seen an amazing, huge hit on them walking in saying, "Hey, I'll provide this to your members. Just let me have a conversation with them." And if they want it, then to be able to sell to their customers, and I can sell to them, talk about my IT services. And one-man shops have been able to close business out of that. So that's kind of my quick overview of how important this is. This is the time that everybody should have Better Tracker.
So thank you. It does sound like a really good opportunity for MSPs to, understand where their spend is, help their customer understand what that spend is, have a better way of keeping track, right? Better Tracker of things, and really just helping to define, what good looks like, and making sure that you don't wind up like Tim overdrafting your Christmas budget, because thankfully not every MSP has a Maureen like I do.
Yeah.
And so when I think of this, like, I suppose I should bring mine up and have my sort of key takeaway. So as an MSP, working alongside your customer, both prospects and existing clients, understanding the budget, understanding your own budget, start by getting your own house in order. Start by using something like Better Tracker to be able to make sure that how many gym memberships are you paying for? Don't be a Tim and pay for 3 Hulus like I was, or Disney Pluses or whatever. And being able to utilize the technology that's at our fingertips with our good friends at Channel Program and their Better Tracker, using the things that are at our fingertips to help us understand where we are, what we're doing, to be able to reduce some of that risk, to be able to understand a little bit of the compliance components that go around that, to really understand, are you profitable? On the tool side, there's a whole nother conversation on the FTE and full-time burden, all that stuff. There's a whole different conversation over there. But on the tool side, making sure that you are profitable, that you are actually getting that 20% margin, that X% margin, and that your customers, even if you decide to pass that margin on, that your customers aren't being overcharged or overburdened, right? That you actually are providing a true, IT professional, right? A true business, a person with a lot
Yep.
of that. So, David, I really appreciate you coming on here. I know we have about 3 or 4 minutes left. Is there any last thing that you want to kind of talk about? I'll throw the banner up there one more time for others.
Sure. No, again, I want to thank you very much for everybody taking the time that did come on and the people that eventually will view this. We're very excited at Channel Program of providing this kind of opportunity for MSPs to really grow their business and have that opportunity to do the kind of things that we're so excited about and getting them, like I said, a differentiating point. I can't say it enough because we all look for that when we're building our businesses. So thank you for having me today, and hopefully it was very informative.
I always forget to do this, right? The Gary V, the give, left, right hook thing. I always forget to do this. So for those of you that want to learn how to deal with compliance, book a demo, right? Come join us. It's always on the website. I always forget to ask. My team is like, Jim, you need a call to action. Okay, book a demo, people. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to actually, I think I have 3 more of these next week or this week. I can't even keep track. But David, thanks for joining us. We're excited to partner with Channel Program on a bunch of different fronts here.
Yep.
Compliance Scorecard is always here to help your MSP have that risk conversation. Book a demo.
Thanks again,
so
Tim.
All right.
Subscribe now.
All right.